Hi, I'm Anthony from Sydney Backyard Veggies. This afternoon I'm over at my lemon tree. Some of the fruit is just starting to ripen, so I'm going to take this opportunity to go do my first harvest of lemons. But also the first flower buds for the season are starting to form, so I'm going to take this opportunity now to add some fertilizer to the tree just to get it in a good position to produce next year's fruit. So today I'm just going to show you what I do from a maintenance perspective on my lemon tree, what fertilizer I use, and things to look out for from pests and diseases. Yeah, so this is my lemon tree. This variety is called Eureka. I find it works well with, in my context, it gives me a nice crop of fruit that's quite juicy. I don't generally prune my tree, but what I have done last year, it just was just getting too big. It's probably close to 4 meters tall now and running hard against the neighbor's fence. I have pruned it just to give it a bit of shape. But generally speaking, it's pretty much set and forget. I did have a bit of collar rot issues earlier in the year, but I did give it a spray and treated that, and that was fine. I also did have an issue with stink bugs. Again, those were treated quite early. But at the moment, they got some nice looking fruit. There's still plenty of green fruit lying around. I do have some incidences of that stink bug damage there that you can see. But generally speaking, it's okay. What I'm going to do, but is I'm going to come through, and all the fruit that's started to yellow, I'm going to go and harvest them first, and then I'm going to go through and give it a bit of a fertilize. Just coming down to the bottom. I generally have tried to keep this area quite clean and clear, but because it was stuck here in this corner and I wasn't able to access it during summer plantings, it's become a bit overgrown. So my first task is to come and harvest and then clean up all the grass and the competition around the base, and then I'll add my amendments for this year. So I'm just going to go through first instance. I'm just clean up all this mess. I'm going to get rid of all this grass and weeds, and also get rid of all the timber that I've left around the base of the plant. So I'm just going to go through that now and get it done. So I've just cleared out all the weeds, cleared out all the timber and the muck, and now I'm just about to add some compost. But before I do that, I just wanted to let you know that in the past I added a timber edging around the tree to protect the base of the plant, but also just to give a bit of a zone where I'll maintain the weeds and so forth. When I do apply my amendments, I will apply it in this space and water in this space as well. Just makes it easier. So I just want to bring you here just to show you some damage that I had 6 months ago. I had collar rot start up on my tree, and you can just see there, that's the scarring. What I think is, I did spray it with a systemic spray, which did clean it up. I'm just anxious now that it might be starting to reform. The bark seems to be quite firm, but what I'm going to do now is just monitor this. I'll continue picking the fruit, but as soon as I see anything like sap or anything like that coming out of the base of the plant, I will definitely give it another treatment. The issue with the treatment is it's a systemic spray, so there's a withholding period on the fruit, but I won't be spraying it at the moment, just to see if there's any additional signs. But generally speaking, everything else looks fine. Eventually I might prune a few of these lower limbs. I think they're just too low to the ground. So what I'm going to do now is just go and get ready to add my amendments. I just want to do a quick rundown on what I add to my fruit trees, in particular my lemon tree. I generally add amendments to the tree once a year at about this time, just as I'm starting to harvest the first of the crop and before it flowers. So I like to get my amendments around the plants now. The thing I look for in amendments, I look for a low nitrogen content fertilizers. What I have made the mistake in the past was I added blood and bone, good handfuls of blood and bone around my citrus trees. And although it gave me a very, very big, luscious tree and lots of growth, what it did was it actually thickened the skin around my lemons. So I was getting 500 gram lemons, but when you would cut them open to juice them, they were all skin. There was very little juice in them. So what I've done since then is really backed off the nitrogen. I do only look for low nitrogen amendments to add. So with that in mind, the main thing I do is look at adding high potassium and high phosphorus amendments. So first thing I do add is a little bit of phosphorus, superphosphate. I add probably a handful at the most, and just got there, and I just add that around the base. But I also, in addition to that, I add potash. So again, I go through and add just a handful around the base. I find that lemons and other citrus do need a lot of calcium, and I would traditionally go for the dolomite lime, which is a great source of calcium for that. But the issue with dolomite lime I found was it was raising the pH around the lemons, and they do need a slightly acidic soil rather than a sweeter soil. So I decided, and it's worked for me in the past, and it's quite a slower release, but I use shell grit. This is the stuff I've got for my chickens. This is all got calcium in it. What I do is I put some of this around the base every year, and what it does is actually, as it breaks down, it actually slowly releases calcium without shifting the pH level around the soil, and I find it actually works quite well. It's worked for me for the last 3 or 4 years. So just a small handful, and that does fine. And then finally, although I haven't added any nitrogen, I do like to add just a little bit of chicken manure pellets, just a small handful. They still do need some nitrogen. Just what you don't want to be doing is overdoing that. And then what I do, let's see if we can pick this up, I mulch around the base with some cow manure. I probably put half a bag around the base. I make sure that it doesn't sit up hard up against the trunk of the tree, because it will could cause rot around the base. But I used to use half a bag just as a mulch, just to keep the weeds away, and just to keep the moisture around those roots, because they do have very shallow roots around the base. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go add these amendments to the base of the tree, and then I will eventually just water it through and make sure it all settles in. So I'm going to go do that right now. Okay, so essentially what I'm going to be doing now is just liberally adding the amendments to the base of the plant. So I always start first with just a handful of the superphosphate. So add it just sprinkle around the base. And then follow that with a handful of just potash. And then I'll just sprinkle, I'll probably end up sprinkling the whole lot. I mean, it's just slow release, so it won't have a over the top impact on the plant at this stage. It'll just break down over the year, so it won't be too much of an issue. And then I don't actually mix it in, I'll just leave it as is. So what I'll do now is I'll take half a bag of cow manure and I'll just mulch the tree, making sure I'm keeping the cow manure off around the base of the trunk. So I'm just going to move it around now, but I just got it into the bag. And what I'll do now is just mulch the whole section. I apply it liberally. I don't mind. I like having about 10 centimetre thickness. So I just wanted to show you the end product. So now I've got all my cow manure just around as a mulch, essentially, just all spread evenly across up to pretty much the edge of the timber trim. But I just wanted to make sure everyone's clear that you want to keep the cow manure off the base of the trunk, so that will encourage rot. So by doing that, you will keep the plant in good stead. So what I might do is I will give this a water, but for now I'll just let it settle in. But ideally you want to give it a nice deep water in now. I will run the hose and let it run for a good 10 minutes just to water it, and yeah, that will be it for this year. This is the only time I add any amendments. So I'm just going to go now and harvest any of the lemons that are ready to go. So this is today's lemon harvest. I generally try to pick them as soon as they start yellowing. I just wanted to show everyone a few items. I made some comments before about too much nitrogen, and I'm still seeing the effect of that now. This is quite a heavy piece of fruit, and when you cut it open, you'll see that the skin wall is going to be quite thick. So it has the excess nitrogen in my soil has gone through, so I am starting to get some smaller fruit. But yeah, just make sure you stay away of putting too much high nitrogen fertilizer on your lemons. That's a lesson learned from my end. Another thing I wanted to show you is scaly damage like that. It's superficial, but this is all sap sucking insects, especially stink bugs. They've caused that damage there. So you do get it on a few of the fruit. As you can see, that it's still edible. It's just got to deal with the damage. You just got to deal with the insects before they damage your fruit. But all in all, it's been a good harvest. There's still at least 2/3 of the tree still to go to harvest. Next thing for me is storage. I try to store them in big open crates, the old milk crates. You do run the risk of mold forming around on the lemons, and essentially the whole crate rots. So what you want to do is just keep your eye on them, somewhere well ventilated, and just something that's not too damp. So I generally put these in the garage. Another thing you should do is let them cure. Let the lemons cure. I find that they juice better if you give them 2 weeks or 3 weeks just to cure. You try to juice them now, actually we will struggle to get most of the juice out. So give them, that's another tip, just to leave them for a couple of weeks before you use them. But yeah, that's it. So I fertilized, and now I've picked my first round, and yeah, happy days. I'm going to take these inside now and store them. So before I finish off with my lemon tree, I'm just going to do a quick check to see if there's any insect damage or any insects that are going through, any infestations going through the plant, just to make sure I keep an eye on them and clean them up. So what I am getting is, if you can see there, just a bit of leaf miner damage, and I've got more leaf miner damage here. They generally happen on the new leaves, and it usually happens in early spring. So I'm expecting that this damage is from last year. But what I'll do is I'll just make sure I go through and just give them a spray of white oil in August, just before it starts warming up, just to get on top of the new growth before it gets impacted by the leaf miner. Other damage that you get is a bit of what looks like a bit of a rust. Now this I believe, but please leave it in the comments if you feel otherwise, is caused by sap-sucking insects. So again, this is damage that happened from spring when I had the stink bug infestation, but you've also got the small one here that's also damaged. So anyway, look, it's not bad. They still can be used. You get damage like that, which is also, I would say, stink bug damage. But all in all, the plants are fine. You can trim back this leaf miner damage if you like, but I'm happy for it just to stay. It will fall off, and it doesn't really take away from the plants. But just wanted to show everyone as well while I'm here. Starting to get my first buds for next season's crop. So as soon as your fruit does yellow, it's a really good idea to pick it and let the tree concentrate on the next season's flush. So all in all, pretty good.